Cool.
Good evening and welcome to Freeman Gallery. I am Kevin Freeman. And before we get started tonight, I'd like to say that at the gallery we have two things upcoming. One is a show in May and June, and it is called Lineage, and it is a drawing show which will be, the participating artists are Miles Danaher, Scott Flanders, and Brian Hoy. And that's going to be again in May and June, so look forward to coming to that. And the other thing is, we do have a second episode of On Being Unique, but we're going to hold off on it a little bit because it's actually become a documentary. So that's in process, and that will be coming out in June, I hope. And so those are two things I just wanted to start out with. And so tonight's guest is a very special guest who happens to be my son. His name is Nathaniel Noton-Freeman, and on Instagram he's known as Nathaniel's Ghost, so check him out there. Nathaniel I've been following Nathaniel obviously as his dad for 28 years, and he has just come off the leg of a tour with the Illuminati Hotties, a West Coast band, and I think this is a good time to catch up to him. He's been home for Thanksgiving, and we've had a few days with him, and he's decompressing, I think. And so welcome, Nathaniel.
Oh, thanks. Happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. Nathaniel and I have had sort of a parallel trek, I think, in our creative aspirations. We use different mechanisms to express ourselves, but we're similar in a lot of ways. So I thought he'd be a great candidate, a great person to be on Being Unique. So I'm going to start out with asking Nathaniel how his tour went, some of the places that he's gone to on this tour, and then where he's going to go on his next one.
Well, tour was fantastic. I really like being on the road. I like seeing new things a lot. I think it's perspective broadening in a lot of ways, and it's let me see a lot of parts of the country that I never would have been exposed to, and see a lot of kinds of people that I never would have otherwise gotten to experience. And that's been, I think in the current political climate where so many people are so opposed to each other, so like quick to disagree and or paint each other as being less than people or whatever it is that they do, it was kind of nice to meet people who I wouldn't necessarily agree with often, and sort of under different terms, like under the umbrella of music, which is really
so give me a specific on that.
Let's see. Well, I think generally my exposure was sometimes it was just people in gas stations.
Yeah.
People in their cars on the highway, and seeing people trying to make a living throughout the country, and seeing how different the rest of the country is outside of New England and outside of cities, which generally tend to be a lot more liberal. So I don't want to turn the conversation to politics, I guess, but.
Yeah, so let's go back a little bit. So it was a year ago that you went west. Was it a year ago?
It was in June of 2017, so I think it's been around a year and a half,
yeah,
maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, so you were teaching guitar and you were looking for something different in life, and you made the trip to LA, and pretty much unknowing that you would find anything at all. Can you tell us what kind of courage it took for you to move, and were you sure, or what kind of feeling you had when that made you move, and then once you got there, how did all of this come about? How did you get in a touring band?
Yeah. Well, I think when I lived here, I think I did what I could to try to make a career musically, and I realized that the vast majority of it was teaching lessons. And while I really loved teaching lessons, I thought that maybe the other part of like the performative aspect of my musicianship couldn't develop or didn't have the audience that I thought maybe it should have when I lived here. So I started thinking that maybe I needed to make some sort of change, and it seemed like if I was going to make any big change, it might as well be like the biggest one I could, and go to the place where I get the most bang for my buck as far as movement, like where I relocated to and what kind of career opportunities I have. So it seemed like Los Angeles was probably the best place.
So did that kind of like grow, or did you just have a eureka moment and say, that's it, I'm going to LA?
I think it grew over time. I think I started becoming kind of frustrated with the situation, with my current situation, because I think I was playing all these gigs in bars and restaurants, and I was always background music, and that never really seemed to be what I aspired to. It didn't feel very fulfilling to me, and it seemed like maybe if I moved somewhere that music was a little bit more part of mainstream culture, that maybe I'd be able to get a little bit farther with performing and play concerts where people came to watch the people on stage. And I think that was my main goal, one of my main goals was to be in a band where I could be on stage in front of people and the audience was there for the performers.
And you assumed that you had obviously you had the skills to do that?
Yeah, I don't think I ever doubted those. And I mean, I didn't ever mean that to seem egotistical, but it just kind of broke it down to objective facts. Like I looked at the amount of time that I put into playing and the amount of what I could do on the guitar, and then I'd see other people and just look at their technique and see, well, these people aren't haven't put as much time in, or haven't taken it as seriously as I had for so long. So it seemed like maybe there was a better place for me to try to practice, like use those skills.
Yeah, so building an audience, that was probably a whole nother challenge. With your skill level, and still the audience wasn't as forthcoming, or you weren't getting the gratification from the audience that you would have liked to have had here.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you can build anything anywhere if you try hard enough, but it seemed like if I was going to put effort into something, I might as well do it in what seemed like an efficient manner, maybe.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So once you got to LA, talk a little bit about how that you found a band and how that worked out.
Yeah, so my current girlfriend, Jessie Hansen, had been motivating me to move there, and she was a pretty big catalyst for the whole thing because she had a place to live. She could put me out for a while until I sorted my situation out. So I thought that it was a pretty good opportunity for me, and through a couple of mutual friends, she knew Sarah, who was the mastermind behind the Illuminati Hotties, and somehow I had met Sarah when I flew out to visit Los Angeles and to see if I liked it, and Sarah ended up, I don't know, I guess liking me or something, and ended up asking me to play with them before I even moved to the city. So
wow.
Yeah, so
so you didn't have to audition?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I showed up like a day after I moved, got to LA, and we were going to play a house show, and I had been practicing the songs along with the recordings in my bedroom in Maine, and I think maybe a little bit when I got to the city. And then we had maybe a 20-minute chunk of time before our set to run over some of the songs, and then we played a house show. And it was a small one, it was maybe 30, 35 people or something, but still a lot more people than I was used to actually paying attention to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that show was probably a bit of a mess, but it was really fun, and it was so nice to play music that I got to kind of mash on my guitar, an electric guitar,
yeah.
and play with my pedals and have some distortion, and it felt way more exciting than what I'd been doing, which was kind of very soft music for people who weren't listening, or didn't seem to be listening to me.
Yeah.
Not on the level I wanted to be listened to. So that felt really good.
Yeah. Yeah, but your earlier work, your acoustic work, you produced 4 albums?
Yeah.
Yeah. They were really well received, and people really liked them, but at some point you sort of felt, did you become disenfranchised with that genre that you was pursuing?
I don't know if it was disenfranchisement. I think my priorities as a creator of music were more in line with discovery rather than the traditional idea of like making an album and then doing a whole lot of stuff with it. And to me it seemed a lot more fun to make a sound and once I made that sound, I was like, okay, what's next? And it was never like, how do I build on this thing? It was kind of like, okay, well, let's try something different. So I made 4 albums that were all, I thought they all sounded like me in different ways, but they were all different kind of feels. I think the first 2, Whirl and Dream, were fairly related. I think the acoustic guitars, like kind of layered and sort of melancholic, yeah. I think I'd like to go back to doing something like that, but the thing that has been really hard for me is that those albums are not recorded very well compared to most of the things that I experienced in Los Angeles. And they're almost recorded so amateurly that it seems kind of laughable. And I know I think the content of those is really good. Like, I'm always proud of the way the songs feel and the note choices, and every time I listen to them I think of a few things that I would do differently for each track probably, but I would really love to make another album like one of those, but with the greater resources that I have now.
So what does that mean, like a more expensive microphone?
Maybe, yeah. Honestly, I think that's part of it. It's a huge part of it, actually. Yeah, a microphone and probably someone else engineering part of it. Most likely the mixing aspect of it, or at least now that I have a number of friends who are really good at recording and specifically mixing music, I think I'd be able to make a much better product after this time, now that I'm there. So it's a possibility. It's just sort of finding the time and feeling the right way to do it. And one of the things that's really challenging for me about living there is that somehow I think I spent most of my life being inspired by really specific things related to my environment. So that means like being outside and being in like outside during weather and feeling a certain way that the change of seasons seems to be.
In New England.
In New England, yeah. I don't think it would have to be in New England, but each one of those seasons does a certain thing to me, and it makes me feel a certain way, and the constant change of them is kind of like refreshing each time.
Mm.
So when I sit down with an instrument, I feel a certain way, and it's always a little bit different depending on the time of year. And Los Angeles doesn't change drastically at all. I mean, there's a hot season, and there's a season where everything's like 70 degrees, and it's kind of those two things. So and I don't get the chance. It's not the same to go out for walks or doesn't really have a lot of weather other than smog. So that's been hard for me, and it's really interesting to me that I came home and I think like right when I got here, I sat down right there with the guitar and immediately wrote two new like little snippets of music, and I saved them on my phone, and it's happened like 6 or 7 times since I've been home. And they're completely new things that I feel good about, and that very rarely happens when I pick up a guitar.
Wow. That's almost an LP.
Well, it would be suitable for like a verse of a song.
Yeah.
So there's still like a bunch to
yeah.
write, but yeah, weirdly,
Wow.
yeah. So I don't know. I think being home really helps my creative soul a lot. But, I don't know. I'd like to force myself or find a way to get into that sort of mental state where I don't need to rely on my environment, because I think all of that stuff's inside of me, and part of it just feels like an excuse almost.
Yeah, but I think inspiration is a valid. If you find your muse, it's better than not. So. And if whatever inspires you is a worthy, it's so if you're in LA and you don't find that inspiration, then you still have this stuff inside of you that is there, but it just doesn't get to surface, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it does inspire certain things. It's just really different things. And it's not the kind of thing that inspires me to pick up an acoustic guitar and record something pretty.
Yeah.
I started skateboarding a lot because it's I've always wanted to, and as a kid in Maine, like with a long dirt driveway, it's like not very conducive to it. But as I'm skating around the city, I definitely think of certain music that I'd like to make. But it's like I always feel like I should be like shouting into a microphone for like a punk or a hardcore band or something.
Yeah.
Because those are the kinds of emotions that place like inspires, evokes in me, and I think it would be really cool to channel that.
Yeah.
And it's perfectly valid, but I think what I'm best at is music that has a much more sentimental quality to it, or more serene sort of quality to it. So I don't know what to do about that, and I think I'll find an answer for it sometime, hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah, we're going to take a short break, and we will be right back. So I want to go. I kind of want to go in both directions. I want to go back a little bit, but I also don't want to lose sight of going forward and what it was like for you to actually practice with the band and get the idea that you were going on tour and imagining yourself traveling through the country. That was a totally new thing.
Yeah, it really was. I remember not like having no idea what it was like to be on tour, and hearing that tour was a possibility. I think Sarah and I went to go get like coffee or something one day, and she's like, "Hey, just so you know, like if we're gonna," I was thinking about maybe like us going on tour. Like, are you down? Can I count you in for that kind of thing? I was like, absolutely. And then I remember us parting ways. Like, she walked back to her apartment, I walked back to mine, and I remember thinking like, wow, what is that gonna be like? I have no idea. And you know, you can imagine it. Like, you have to get from city to city. You play a venue each night, but seeing it is, it seemed. I wasn't aware. I don't think I could even imagine how much work it would be and how much driving it was possibly going to be. I thought, you know, everybody who I know who goes on tour, especially in the East Coast, like does a very logical string of dates, and it's like, because the East Coast cities are so close together, it's like 2 hours to one city, 2 hours to another, and you can just kind of like work your way down the coast, and maybe you drive back up and it takes a while. And if you tour in LA for some reason, it's like you got to drive 3,000 miles first before you start the tour. So we've had a lot of that, and I don't know if that's like tour planning could be a little bit better, because I mean, you'd think you'd be able to play a show in like Los Angeles, then San Francisco, then Portland, then Washington, like what's it called? What's the main city in Portland, or in Washington? Seattle. Oh, sorry. Cut that out. And you think that's how things would go, but we end up getting on tours with other bands. So in order to do that, we have to start where they're starting, and usually they're not from Los Angeles. Yeah. So it means that we gotta drive a lot to get there. Yeah. But
again, at the inception, you didn't realize what even going on a tour meant. And then once you got, say, like into the first tour, how did you feel then? What was it?
The first tour was very different from the next I guess three sort of technically tours, because it was completely DIY. Sarah booked all of the gigs herself, and we were also in a minivan as opposed to the Ford like Econoline van that we use now. So things were really cramped, and it was not super comfortable. Like my back was like, because we had so much gear in the back of the minivan, you couldn't put the seats back at all. So the whole time, with your 6-hour drive, 7-hour, 9-hour drive, whatever, you're just sitting here like this the whole time. Your lower back is like, wow. Yeah. So that got pretty uncomfortable at times, but it was still really fun, especially because I'd never done it before. Yeah. I think if someone was like, okay, come on tour with me in a minivan now, I'd be like, no way. Like, get a real van.
So you really got to start with this band on their first tour. Sarah didn't have experience in your other bandmates. Did they have experience touring?
Well, Sarah had done a few minor tours. I think she'd gone up and down the West Coast with another, with I think another project of hers, and Tim had been on tour with he had been on tour opening for some very, like, surprisingly, like, very large band. And we had Jessie with us at the time, and she had toured with a couple, I think a artist or band called Soul and Keel.
Yeah.
So I think it was maybe a world music trio or something. I think that's what it was. So, and I self-booked tours for myself too, and they were pretty minor. It was always East Coast stuff.
Yeah.
I think the farthest I got was New York City, but we weren't total strangers to driving around the country.
Yeah. Yeah, because when you left for LA, you drove across. With a car full of stuff.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and you stopped at national parks and you got out to the Midwest and
yeah. I saw a lot of the country that I never had expected to see.
So you're going back and forth like it's a small world now.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, it's simultaneously really small and absolutely massive.
Yeah.
Like because we started seeing the same cities again now. Austin is weirdly familiar to me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to drive like 13 hours or more to get to Austin from, I think it's even like from Arizona. So it's always a crazy drive. So it feels massive, but then you get to these familiar places again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
So what's that done to the conviviality of the band?
Conviviality.
Friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's a curveball. I think we've all grown to appreciate each other's company a lot. I think we've also found a lot of similarities between each other that we didn't realize, and it's always kind of interesting meeting new people and not really understanding where each other's sense of humor lies. And over time, like, people try jokes, and you sort of, like, everybody kind of realizes where the group is at as a whole, and what jokes you can, like, will get a laugh, and what jokes won't, and that's been really interesting. It turns out that everybody in the band is, like, a bit of a nerd on some level, so we've definitely had some stuff in common.
So that has been kind of like figuring out how your guitar fits into the band.
Yeah, I think this is me. Yeah, how I fit into the band personally and musically.
Yeah,
for sure. I think we're all a really good fit for each other. We all get along very well.
Yeah. So when you're on the road, you kind of feel at home a little bit. You feel like you're with a family or people that you're all like-minded and supportive of each other.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've got it does feel like a pretty good support network. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of things that go wrong, and I'm pretty, I think of anybody, I think maybe except Sarah, like the two of us are really comfortable with life on the road.
Yeah.
I don't really get, I'm not really the kind of person that gets homesick, especially if I have things happening that exciting or like there's a lot of change going on. That's kind of what I like. I've realized like after I did that trip from Maine to Los Angeles, I had this huge travel bug awoke in me, and once tour was on the table, it was let's get out of here and go adventure again.
Yeah. Wow.
So I love seeing new stuff all the time.
Wow, that's great. So you arrived here from your last tour, which was in Durham, North Carolina.
Yeah. So we ended there.
Yeah, you ended in. So tell us some of the cities like on your second tour where you went.
Yeah, I think that was one of the most exciting ones geographically, because the one before that had been mostly we drove to Virginia and then drove to the Midwest, like did a zigzag through the Midwest a bunch and then did the East Coast. East Coast was nice, but for the most recent one, we opened for a band called Los Campesinos. They're a band from the UK who was doing a run through, they were doing a West Coast run, so we started in Vancouver. I had not been to Canada, which seems kind of funny because you grew up here and we're not many hours from the United States-Canada border, but there never really seemed to be a point to going, and you guys never were like, we should go to Canada, so it never really happened, but it was really interesting to visit Canada. I guess I'd never really been out of the country. I don't think Bermuda is part of the United States at all.
No.
So that's like the only time I've ever been out. but I didn't have money then, so it was really interesting to exchange my money for foreign currency and then have the exchange rate be favorable. So everything I bought was way cheaper, and the food was already cheap anyway.
Yeah.
So I got like a really good meal of sushi for like, I think a ballpark of $7 United States, where it should have been like 12 or 14, 15.
Yeah.
So that stuff was interesting. We hung out with some Canadians, people who actually grew up in the name of the it's like above Maine.
Quebec, Nova Scotia.
Yeah, they grew up in Nova Scotia and they moved to Vancouver, so we got to hang out with them. And it was funny. People make fun of me sometimes for saying house, kind of like house. A little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not really conscious of it, but every once in a while, like people pointed out enough that I think I do it or have done it, and they both said it like that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, maybe that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
It like kind of comes down
Sure.
into Maine from Canada.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we started in Vancouver, and then we played in Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, and then Los Angeles, and then we headed through the Texas.
So did you go down to San Diego?
Yeah, we did play in San Diego. Once we got to Los Angeles, we did a few dates that were kind of local to where we live. So I stayed at home for 3 nights, and we went to Santa Barbara, and we went to San Diego. Played 2 shows in Los Angeles at 2 pretty good, like one that was a total milestone venue for us. The Troubadour is a sort of legendary rock venue. So when you tell people your band's playing the Troubadour, they go, "Whoa, that's cool."
Yeah.
So that was really neat, and yeah, and then after that, we headed to Texas. We played gigs in Austin and Dallas. We also played one in Phoenix, Arizona, but both of our shows in Arizona have not been a very good feeling. So I don't know exactly what factor it was. This time the crowd was like totally expressionless. And usually we're used to people getting like visibly into the music, so it felt strange.
Yeah.
And I broke a string during the first song, so I couldn't get through. I just had to restring it.
What was it, a high E? Or?
Yeah, it was my high E.
Yeah.
And usually if it's in the last couple of songs, it's really no problem. And I actually break strings pretty frequently, like maybe once every 4 or 5 shows.
That's my voice.
Yeah, well, like it's like punk rock music sort of.
Yeah.
So, or at least I play like a punk rock guitar player, like lots of down picking.
Yeah.
So yeah, strings break sometimes. But if it's in the first song of the set, I like really don't want to go through the whole set.
Yeah.
So, but we all felt kind of, it's like, okay, here's the first song and it's done. It's like, okay, well now we gotta restring Nathaniel's guitar. And I'm pretty fast at it, but it just like kind of took the wind out of our sails, like right as we were starting.
Sure. Yeah.
So that felt a little odd, but every other gig felt really good. The gigs in Texas were really fun. There were people screaming in the audience. That was about the time where people started being mosh pits at the shows too, so people would be like running and flailing, like kind of bumping into each other and flailing their arms.
So you saw different audiences for the different bands that you were opening for?
Yeah, and we also saw different audiences for the cities that we were in too. So Los Campesinos has been around for about 10 years, and my assumption is that a lot of people found, if you've been listening to Los Campesinos for those 10 years, you're a lot older than someone who goes to an all-ages show for Wunderbar, who's the other band that we opened for. So it was like probably like people for the Los Campesinos dates, it was like people between ages 20 and maybe 35 in the audience, and then for Wunderbar it was like a lot of like 16 to maybe 22-year-olds or something.
Yeah.
It was a really different crowd, and those younger people definitely, from my observations at least, get a little bit crazier at shows.
And then more likely to have a mosh pit.
Apparently, yeah.
So when did you cut off? What was the age?
I cut off maybe when I was 22 or something. I used to get into those sometimes, and it was really fun, but I had this one experience where I got knocked down by a guy in a karate uniform who was like, looked like he was at this show to like beat people up. He was like practice his moves or something. He was doing spin kicks, and I remember lying there on the ground, looking up and seeing his feet whirling above me, and I was like, this is the moment I die. And then some kind person in the pit grabbed me and yanked me to my feet and got me out of there. But
you didn't tell us about that.
No, I wouldn't have. No, but that was when I was in college, I think.
Yeah.
But then, and then I started, I don't know, maybe it's like, I don't think it's a sense of my own mortality necessarily, but it's a sense of I can really mess up my hands, and if I
Yeah.
mess up my hands, I can't play.
Yeah.
So I just kind of stopped doing it, and I don't know. My friend Joe has gotten into, like, he's gotten, like, he sent me a picture after a metal show, and he still goes into the mosh pits and he'll have like a cut on his face or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
I'd rather listen to music at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a cutoff definitely. So, but it's also the type of music that like Wunderbar's music is more moshable. I'd say it's more upbeat. It's really like lately people have been calling the songs that are really upbeat and like dancey. They call them bangers.
Yeah.
So the songs are like real bangers. And Los Campesinos definitely wasn't in the same way. I think they were very rhythmic and had a lot of energy and groove, but it wasn't like Wunderbar's are kind of like raw rock and roll, and Los Campesinos is like a big band. They have maybe like 6 or 7 people on stage, and there are 3 guitar players, and one guy's like in like tremolo picking, and one guy's like playing chords, and one guy's playing like all these like, so there's like a lot of stuff going on. So there's not a lot of like blank space in between the notes, and I think that's kind of what makes like a song really hit really hard is when there's like a bump, you know, so it makes you move, and when it's just a sea of notes, it feels way different. And then also we've noticed that certain venues or certain cities specifically have very different crowds built in too. So for instance, in Los Angeles, a lot of people just kind of sit there and like watch you. Same thing in Nashville, actually. People just kind of like cross their arms and stare at you, and they're like evaluating you know. And then in the Midwest, people go wild for music. It's like, I don't know if maybe it's the most exciting thing going on in town that night. So they're like really psyched to be there. And in LA, they're like, you know, 100 concerts happening every single night of the week. And like you could also like go anywhere else and do anything. You could go kart racing, or go to like a crazy arcade, or go to a weird bar. There's like a million things to do. So you got to be like, people want to know that where they are is worth their time. I think.
So that's one thing that kind of mystifies me, is that you're out touring, but you're living in the city of LA, where I would think there would be infinite venues, and you could like tour right in LA.
Well, I think if you're trying to accumulate a fan base and you're trying to bring people out to shows, there's only so much that you can play in one specific place. And all these venues really just want you to bring people to like drink beer. Apparently. I think that like they want to make money, and if you're not bringing people to a gig, then there's no point in you being there. So they're not gonna hire you if you're playing like 5 other venues that week, and you're not gonna be able to bring many people. So you have to. So the way if you want to get the maximum amount of people out, typically you like play 1 show a month. And if you do that, then it's gonna like, you're gonna be maybe like a little bit fuzzy enough in people's memories that the next month they consider going. But if you're playing there all the time, and places don't really have, the thing is, places don't really have built-in crowds. So that makes a big difference. You're responsible for bringing people to the venue, and you can't bring your friends out every night of the week. So that's where tour comes in, and I think also tour stimulates a lot of press and a lot of outreach, and even stimulates streaming too. Like tour is basically it's like, you know, it's a lot of things, but it seems to be advertising. So if you're on tour posters all over the place, if you're on these venues' websites, if you have way more content to post on Instagram and Facebook and whatnot. So you have way more. You have more power when you're on tour. And Sarah has remarked that, so she has an app that shows exactly what all of her Spotify analytics are, so she can see when we're being streamed the most, and it coincides directly with tour. There'll be like, you know, maybe like, I don't know what exactly the numbers are, but ballpark like maybe like 25,000 people monthly listening when we're not on tour, and then it jumps up another like 10,000 or 15,000 when we're on tour. So it's really important for bands to be out there in the world. And it's a way that you can play a gig every night. Because otherwise, I mean, what happens in Maine is people will play gigs every night, but they'll have like 3 or 4 different bands that they play with. And maybe it's all the same people in every band, but they'll play different music for each project, and that's how they do it. But if you're playing in one band, I think that's the way it goes.
So I noticed that in some of the cities that you guys went to, you would also have like a pre-show, maybe on a radio station or someplace where the public would be notified that you're going to be there.
Yeah.
So you would play live little a song or two, or do you ever play the whole set?
We almost never play the full set. Yeah, sometimes we'll have record shop shows that we
Yeah.
play, and then we'll have radio station shows. And really most of them are pretty similar. It's just it's usually a smaller set. For the record shops, we typically play a sort of a reduced set where our drummer has like a tiny drum kit. It's like snare, kick, and a hi-hat.
Uh-huh.
And the bass player, Dean, plays he has a little keyboard. It's an OP1, it's this little
Oh,
synthesizer.
really?
So he'll play bass on that.
Ah.
I'll play normal guitar, but I won't use any distortion. And then Sarah plays an acoustic guitar.
Oh.
So that's been, I like those gigs a lot. I think it's just me and Sarah who likes those. I think Dean and Tim aren't as excited about them.
Yeah.
Which we can get into. But I like it because everything's different, so the expectations aren't that we'll play them like as close to the record as we can.
Yeah.
So I'll put like I got this new tremolo pedal that sounds really cool on playing guitar, so I'll put it on more things.
Yeah.
And or if things end up going a little bit differently, it's sometimes like, wow, that's really cool, and it's because everything's different. I don't think it's as big a deal if things are a little bit flipped on their head.
Yeah, take more creative liberties.
Yeah.
But it also is letting people know what the upcoming show is going to be like. So you don't want to make it too different than your live performance.
Yeah, totally. I mean, things aren't changing that much. It's more like I have like a reverb pedal on in one section that I wouldn't normally have it on.
Yeah.
It's like really minimal stuff. I try to be really respectful of the song, the content of the song, and like Sarah's the most important thing. Like we're all trying to make her sound as good as possible. So inevitably, like not much really changes.
Yeah.
And then we play the radio station gigs, and some of those have been really fun. We played. Where was it? We played one at KUTX. I think that must have been in Seattle, maybe. No. Anyway, anyone who cares can look it up, I guess. But KUTX was an NPR radio station, and they had a pretty nice room and a lot of nice gear, and I don't know. It's always kind of fun to be in those spaces.
So after the recordings, then are they available online?
Well, they definitely put them up on the radio. They're on the radio show, and I suppose anywhere that you could stream the radio show, you could probably listen to them.
Yeah.
There are definitely. I've heard some versions of us playing tracks online.
Yeah, because your mother would immediately, when she knew that you guys were going to be playing on a radio station, would tune you in. You know, and then I think that we were able to watch a lot of those. They would post them later on their websites. Yeah. So I guess if people decided to do a search, they probably could find some of these recordings of you.
Yeah, there's one. We did one for Stereo Gum, which was a pretty big deal for us. It was in New York City, and it was this really cool.
Yeah, that one was a video recording, right?
Yeah, we've had a few of those.
Yeah.
Some of them have gone really well. Some of them were, I don't know how to rate it. We have standards, I guess, and sometimes things don't work out perfectly, and it definitely makes things feel a little weird.
Well, when you're doing live music, you're vulnerable to that. Anything can happen. Yeah, I'm assuming.
They tell you we had one show. I think it was the end of the tour opening for Diet Sig, and one of the cameramen started talking during our set. Like, and Sarah has all these quiet parts, so it's just her and her guitar, and it's like this really sentimental thing, and there's this guy like laughing in the background, and we actually like stopped and we're like, what's going on? Like, why are you doing this? Can you please not talk during the set?
Yeah.
It was weird, and he was part of the production, and he did it twice in a row, too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so you get that stuff out there. So let's go back a little bit farther now, and I'm interested in, at some point, I think you were studying music and in college, and you decided that you were going to be a musician or nothing else. And you made that decision, and your mother and me, we supported you in it, and but it was a pretty radical decision, and it wasn't something that we were like really excited about. So, but you made that decision, and then you've been working on music, and I'm just wondering, what precipitated that decision? Did you were so adamant that you only wanted to do music at that point in your life?
You know, I've been thinking about this a bit lately, and it seems that for a lot of my life, people have told me, like, do what you love, and money will follow. And it also seemed kind of like I only had one shot at the college thing, like I wasn't going to get to redo it. So if I was going to do it, I might as well learn the thing that felt the best to me and be that person who followed all their dreams and never compromised what they chose to do. And I guess it was partly because I'd met so many people who said, oh, I always wished I'd done this thing. And I've never wanted to be that person for a second in my life. Like, if there's something I want to do, I just find a way to do it. And whether or not, like, I know I want to do that forever is a different story, I think. But I can never say that I wish I had become a musician and I wish I'd been able to do all these things.
Yeah.
Because it seems to, like, try it and fail seems a lot better than to like wish for your whole life that you try to do something.
Absolutely. So, but it's pretty epic that you did pick something as specific as music and that you dedicated yourself to that. And now that you have arrived here, you know, so it's been, the process has been, I'm sure, challenging, but nonetheless here you are. You've actually reached your dreams and you've pulled them off.
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like a few really important milestones were accomplished in the past, like because I moved out there.
Yeah.
And that feels really good. I think I can check off touring with the band, and I can check off maybe a few other things. I think maybe like some of the recording things I've done while I've been out there, like getting to record. I've recorded tracks for a few TV shows that actually ended up getting used, which were kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's felt really neat.
So, and what about performance? You've never had, I don't think you've ever had the opportunity to perform like you are with the Illuminati Hotties, where you have a big audience and people screaming, and that seems to me like it's a different experience than expressing yourself through music, or maybe it's not.
Yeah, it feels very different. It's another one of those things where people sign up to play music. It's this is what I'm going to do with my life, and you don't consider all of the other things that come with it. And I always thought the other things were the business side of music, like making money from it is very different from being good at playing a guitar or recording an album. But it also became very apparent to me that playing on a stage in front of a lot of people and doing more than just like play your instrument is a huge part of putting on a performance. And I think for me, I settle for just trying to radiate as much positivity as I can, and I guess it's because I see a lot of bands that don't look like they want to be on stage. I see it all the time, and it's probably not the truth. Like they're there because they love it, and pretty much I don't think anybody gets on stage as a band because they, they're liking it. It sounds kind of absurd, but a lot of them come across that way. So I never wanted to be that kind of a band, and I think maybe it's because I'm used to playing music that has a lot going on and is very cerebral and doesn't, and like kind of necessitates standing still. If you're like doing something really complex on a guitar, you're not going to be jumping around or like putting on that kind of a show. And that's accepted for those kinds of bands, but now that I'm in the band where I strum a lot of chords and I play a lot of really simple melodies, it seems like maybe the next thing to develop is stage presence and my ability to interact with the crowd and to assist look far beyond myself and try to pay attention as much as I can to what my bandmates are doing and really hone in on try to be the tightest band we can be.
Yeah. So developing the persona, is that a creative process in itself?
I think maybe on some level it feels more like just like trial and error, and I think they're creative decisions and they don't seem like really large decisions. It's kind of like the decision to like put your foot up on the monitor, or like turn around and like smile at my drummer every once in a while. But those kind of things definitely make the show. I mean, I think people notice that we seem like we really like playing together.
Yeah.
And I think that draws people in a lot.
Yeah.
It's like they're seeing, I don't know, I always kind of feel like I see, whenever I see different bands, I evaluate them in different ways, and some bands are really technically skilled, and some bands are really good at writing a song, and I think our band has a lot of really good things going for it, but it also has it has a lot of heart. You know, I think it's just like everybody just has like the heart meter is like full, sort of, and we all just love doing it, and we like each other a lot, and that comes across in the live performance.
And I'm going to go grab my laptop, and we're going to watch a little sequence from your show in Boston at O'Brien's.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sounds good. That's a good place to start.
Hello, little daddy. 1, 2, oh no! Someone your guitar, it sounds like. Someone my guitar, it sounds like shit. Just the freckles on your arm, and I'm like, you love me from my heart, and only like me when I'm sad. You only want me when I'm feeling bad. You only like me when I'm sad. Watching everybody dance when they sing. Hair just smiling. I'm talking this close to your ear, 'cause it's way louder. The heartbeat of your coffee, the same color. You only like me when I'm sad. You only want me when I'm feeling bad. Yeah, you only like me when I'm sad. You only want me when I'm feeling bad. I'm feeling so bad, Daddy. Sad. You only want me when I'm feeling bad. You only like me when I'm sad.
Yeah, so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that was a fun show.